Hey, what's going on, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. I'm excited for this episode. I'm talking about on the podcast. I'm joining my brother Mark, and we sit down and talk about the benefits and the cons of going computer-based testing. It was just announced that the PE exam is going to be accelerated to a 2020 schedule of going computer-based. Now, there's already some exams that are already computer-based. That includes the mechanical exam as well. But we don't have a civil exam that's going computer-based yet, obviously. So because of COVID, they accelerated the schedule. It's now going to be 2022 instead of, I believe it was 2023 when they initially said they were going to do that. So things are going to be accelerated. You're going to be using their own reference manual. And in today's episode, we talk all about the pros and the cons about it, going computer-based testing with my brother Mark. It's going to be a good one. So stick with me and we'll see you soon. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Isaac here. I got my brother Mark on with me. How's it going, Mark?
How's it going, everybody? Good.
Good. We wanted to jump on together and discuss this big announcement. I actually did a podcast episode with Tim Miller. It was actually episode 51. If you want to go check it out, civilengineeringacademy.com/CEA51. But I did an interview with Tim Miller, and he didn't use the platform. They had just barely announced it, but they accelerated the schedule for the CBT exam to go out in 2022 instead of 2023. So
that changes things.
That changes it.
Things. Yep.
And the reason for that, he said, is because of COVID mainly. They wanted people to have access to a testing center and be able to not have to group together and socially distance and all that jazz. So that kind of came out in that interview. I thought that was interesting. So in today's episode, I wanted to talk with you, and maybe we could hammer out some of the pros and cons to going computer-based testing in 2022, maybe why people might want to knock it out in 2021. So that's kind of what we want to discuss.
Well, let's talk about it.
So Mark, what do you think are some of the pros of this guy?
Well, some of the pros is I think being able to take it any time of the year can be a positive for some. It's just, you have that much more flexibility. Usually you're studying around an April or an October time frame, right? Every year. And this opens it up, man. Anytime you want. Anytime you want. And so there's some pluses to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of nice. I think you'll naturally probably still see when people will be taking that. It's probably going to be summertime just because of school. But it'd be interesting to see if it follows the same trends as like the FE or even the mechanical PE, which is computer-based, and the percentages there. So
yeah, I bet you do see some of those trends that'll mirror the FE and the spikes in those things. Yeah. So so that's one of the other pros. I think you just touched on a little bit is the results come quicker. So how long were we waiting before for results?
So before, you'd go take the exam, let's say in October, and you wouldn't get a result till December.
Yeah.
So
that's painful. It's a long time of painful waiting, isn't it?
Could be a nasty Christmas present for people taking it in October, or it could be really good.
And so now they're promising those results in about a week, which I with CBT, I think that's still a little bit long. They could probably tell you a little sooner, but they have to keep those results as long as that, but at least a week's better than 2 months.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing about the mechanicals is that it's usually like 6 days that they get the results. So, I mean, that's better than months, but you would think that if you're taking it on a computer, they could spit it out as soon as you're done, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do those psychometric grades and testing, and they probably look at some of those questions and see if a group of people missed the similar question or whatnot, even though they
the statisticians are having a field day with this CBT stuff, aren't they?
Yes they are. And you can imagine most people would have the same AM, and maybe this is a con, is that most people would have the same AM portion of the exam and the same PM portion if you were taking like geotech. But in this scenario now, when you go computer based, those things can be mixed up. So it's not necessarily that like the morning portion might be easier. It might be that they could throw that afternoon portion at you first, and you're just hit with a bunch of geotech questions, and then they throw like the morning type questions in the
The
afternoon.
breath
Like there's
questions. Yeah.
yeah, there's no real rule of thumb there on what they could ask you and not ask you. So that kind of sucks, I think, because mentally, I think people like knowing that they're all preparing for the same kind of exam. And when they throw all
Yeah.
this stuff at you, that might.
Well, and when I took the PE, I kind of liked that breath portion, that morning portion, to kind of get my brain in gear, and
Yeah, work
things
into it.
rolling, work into it, and then I could focus on my depth section. That's the way my mind works. I thought that was a little bit better. So if they're throwing in, the breadth and the depth stuff, kind of mixing it all up, that could be
Yeah, and I don't know if that's for certain, but I have,
that's
I've heard that,
potentially.
yeah, that they could ask you the PM questions first and throw you the AM stuff in the afternoon just to mix it up, because the exam you're taking at one computer is not the same as the guy next to you, even if you're taking the same depth
Sure.
exams.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's the beauty for them to do a computer-based test,
Yeah.
but that might suck for you. So
Yeah. Right.
anyway, that's another one. What are some
Okay.
other pros you think?
Well,
Sorry, I
some of the
started
other
going into
things.
cons.
Well, let's talk about the different testing locations. There's going to be a lot of those, and so it'll be a lot more convenient to find a local testing location, and you're not going to be scheduling flights and trying to get somewhere, I guess, more remote. It'll be more convenient that way, right?
Oh yeah. So just a quick story. The first time I took the PE, I was all gung ho, and I actually registered to take it in Arizona. I'm from Utah. So I
That's
paid all the money to fly down there. I had to get a hotel. You have to rent a car. And I took the exam and just got slapped in the face because I was not ready for it, did not prepare properly for it. And it was a huge waste of time and money. So I wish, if it was a local place that I could go take the exam, that would be, that to me, that would be a lot better. I think
Oh
that's
yeah,
really nice.
yeah, absolutely, a lot more convenient.
And year round, you can just, plug and
Yeah, and
chug.
then just the logistics of all that, Isaac, trying to find a place to stay, the
Yep.
hotels, blah 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 blah. There's a lot of things that you won't have to do.
And that just adds to people's anxiety about this exam in the first place, having to do all that. So,
Yeah.
well,
Well, this last one though that we're going to bring up, Isaac, I don't. Is it going to be it could be a pro or a con, but when they transfer the CBT format, how many references plural, I
you
guess I
get
should say,
one.
are we going to get?
You get one.
We're
One
just going to get
reference.
one.
That's it.
Yeah. So, depending on your point of view, that could be good. It could be bad.
Yeah.
I tend to, when I think of NCEES reference material, I'm thinking of the FE reference manual, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it's not the greatest piece of reference material in the world. It's just not.
I
So
agree.
is that what we're gonna get?
That's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get one fat reference manual. You know what? Most people now use the civil engineering reference manual, or the whatever it's called now, the PE reference manual from PPI. And if you go get it, go use our discount code and website so you can get 15% off. If you head to civilengineeringacademy.com/PPI and our code is CIVAC, you can get 15% off that book. I still think that book is a valuable resource, even if this is going to go with one particular resource. And I don't know if that's a pro or a con. It kind of fits in both.
It
But
does.
you're going to want to obviously study from the NCEES reference manual, because that's your only thing you're going to bring to the exam, similar to the FE.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're looking for problems and resources and something to help you study, it might still be good to get the CERM even if it's something you keep at work, that could be helpful too.
So is that going to force you to memorize more material then?
I think so. I think you'll have to memorize more material just so you don't have to be stuck looking up equations all the time and whatnot. But who knows? The other kind of, maybe we can, well, we'll hit some of these later. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but that is a pro. We listed it on there as a pro.
Listed it as a pro, yeah.
Because you're focused on one reference manual, not a million. So you just need that one.
Yeah, that's a good point, Isaac. I mean, when I took the PE, I there was guys sitting, a few tables away from me that were bringing in milk crates on dollies just full of reference materials.
Of course.
And they never used them all. But, I don't know if it gave them a sense of security to have that much material, but in that regard, it's probably a plus, because.
Well, in my interview with Tim, also he touched upon this, and I said, "Well, how are they going to handle the standards? Because usually that's the students that bring in the most amount of books are guys that are taking the structural depth exam, and they're bringing in massive amounts of standards because they have to. It's all referenced in the
right.
They tell you need it. So how are they going to handle that? And from what my recollection is he told everyone that they're going to have that as PDF reference as well. So
nice.
It might not be the only reference, just the handbook that they're going to make, but you're going to have those standards, I think, as well, that they've got called out. I don't see any way around that.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. It's just, and so in that regard, it's a time saver. You're not hassling with a million references, trying to flip through pages and find things that you need. It'll all be there. It'll be the appropriate references, the appropriate standards cited with just quick reference.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you. The handbooks that the NCEES produces, yes, they work, but they're not the most user-friendly. People don't like the variables they use because it usually has nothing to do with what you learn.
And they're inconsistent variables too.
It's like
they'll use a variable in one equation, and then they'll use the same variable, but it has a different meaning in two equations down the page, and it's like, holy smokes, man, at least be consistent.
Yeah, we can't get this right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a negative, I think, overall on that, but you're going to use it. So let's go over this. So the NCEES, some of what they promise as part of this is that you're going to have enhanced security for exam content as a bonus.
Yeah. So they're making, I guess you have to sign an agreement that you will not disclose any of the exam content post-exam, right? You can't go and talk to your buddies about what type of problems you solved or anything.
Yeah.
Like that.
And that's similar as it is today. You signed that.
Plus they have you on video surveillance as you're taking the test, right?
Yeah. So you're in a testing room they're watching you.
So enhanced security for sure.
More uniform testing conditions. What does that mean?
Well, so everybody's in the same environment, right? These testing centers have the same ambient temperatures and have the same facilities and the same bathrooms. Break. Everything's exactly the same. So, it takes that variable, I guess, out of the equation. If somebody, I'm trying to think of my own PE test experience and when I took it back in the day, and I don't know that those environments were exactly the same. It was quite a large auditorium that I was sitting in.
Oh, they're huge.
Yeah, just rows and rows of tables and you're sitting by a bunch of your colleagues going through the test. But and so that's what's in my mind when I think of the actual test conditions. But I think being by yourself in a cubicle, taking it on a computer, I don't know. I don't know that's all bad. I think that it's probably a good thing. I get a little distracted when there's a lot of people right next to me as I'm testing. So for me, it's a little little better because
focused.
I can be a little more focused.
Yeah. So that's good. They hit scheduling flexibility as a promise. So we kind of hit that already, but you're more flexible because of this testing center. You can choose a different date. You can move things around. It's close, local. So that's
Yep.
nice.
Yep.
You don't have to take it the same time. You can do it different times of the day. So if you're not a
Yep.
morning person, you don't have to do it in the morning. So there you go.
Yep.
In testing tools aimed at aiding chart reading.
Yeah. So they've got, when you've got the NCS, reference material, and there's charts that you're supposed to read values from, different engineering charts. Sometimes it's a little tough to get, appropriate values. I was looking at some of the NCS. I guess it's promotional material on some of the tools, the in testing tools, and that was one of the cool things that I noticed is once you pull up a chart that you're trying to read specific values on, you can snap right to the exact values, like right in between within the test, and so you can get a little more accurate values on your chart reading. It's kind of a cool
That's
little
true.
tool that they had.
That is a good thing. Well, one of these we want to talk about, I don't know if it's a plus, but they've listed this as a plus, and alternative answer types. So you got multiple correct, point and click, drag and drop, and fill in the blank. If you're unfamiliar with those are all part of the FE exam. So if you took that recently, you'll probably be familiar with those, but that's an NCEES promise. I actually think that's a minus because the exam right now is just straight up multiple choice. When you start throwing in different ways of solving these, multiple
Yeah,
corrects,
it
point and
becomes more
clicks,
subjective, doesn't
it's
it?
just like, yeah, now you've thrown in an extra element to think about.
Plus, you're subject to the format that the fill in the blank maybe requires.
Yep.
That may trip you up, but
Let's hit our cons real quick. So obviously, this is one of the biggest cons is that it's not open book anymore. Dun dun dun. So sorry. This is a big reason
yeah,
I think why you should get the exam done in 2021. Because it's nice to have the references you want to bring in. I know you can bring in suitcases fulls, but so what? That's
yeah,
nice. So
yeah,
only one reference, maybe that's a positive for you, but when you're dealing with theory problems, it's nice to have a textbook to help you out. Otherwise, you're just going to have to know it.
yeah,
So, do you think the CERM will be worth using anymore? We kind of hit that a little bit.
yeah. We did, and that's gonna kind of it's. I think it will be, but maybe the way it gets used will change. Once we understand what this NCS reference is, what it's got, maybe the way you approach your studies and the way you use the CERML, I'm guessing that's going to change based on whatever that.
I'm betting PPI puts in references to the NCEES handbook in the CERM, so not you'll have like two references probably. That's my
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. No, I bet you're right.
I don't
I
know.
bet you're right.
So here's a con. You'll need to get to know the new references. We aren't sure it's all that you need is in there, so that kind of ties into that. Not sure every equation and everything that's in there. Even theory can be a problem. How about this one? References could be organized in an unfamiliar way. This is a big
Yeah.
reason why you got to use it all the time, I think.
Yeah, and that's part of your efforts as you study, right, Isaac? Is you're trying to get familiar with that reference manual since it's the only one. You and I, we emphasize that for our students, our clients that are studying for the FE, that we're helping study for the FE, is use that reference material because that's
Yes.
all you got on the test. You got to get familiar with it. So,
Yep. And if you're studying for that, go check it out. civilfereviewcourse.com.
that's right.
If you need a review for your FE, we reference that a lot.
That's right.
So we touched on this. You said memorization. You probably do need to memorize a few more problems. I imagine that's just going to help you overall. I think it'll be helpful to understand or memorize conversions, probably the most.
Yeah.
To try to bust through those quickly. which you probably are doing anyway, but hopefully the reference manual is good and helps you along with that.
Yeah.
How about this one? Specific formatting for inputting answers.
Yeah, we brought that up as one of the issues that could come up with these alternate answer types. I mean, sometimes these computer based these applications for test taking, sometimes they require like a specific format, and if you don't input your answer in that exact format, then the answer might be wrong. Whereas if you had a maybe an instructor, a professor that was grading that same answer, and you had something inputted as a different format, say like like an equation is a good example. Those can be expressed in different formats. Equations are still equivalent, but they're expressed maybe a little bit differently. And if you don't express that equation in the specific format that the testing software is looking for, then maybe it marks it wrong.
Yep, that wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good. Well, and also another con, just thinking out loud here, that we threw on here is: are you going to commit to taking this? Uh, it was nice because the old way of doing things, you only had 2 times a year. It was an easy way to commit to a date, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
twice a year. That's it.
Right.
Now you can keep kicking the can, so to speak,
Yeah.
and never feel like you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's still going to be important to commit to a date and do all you can to stick to it, huh?
Yep. And in addition, you'll be charged a fee if you kick the can down the road and keep rescheduling. They will charge you for that.
So
So
they're disincentivizing that from happening by doing
yes,
that.
and I believe right now they charge you $50 to reschedule that exam. So
Okay. Well,
you
that's
you
kind of a
don't
good
want
thing.
to, but a lot of people still do because they just don't feel ready.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
okay, we talked a little bit about alternative answer types. We talked about how that would maybe screw you over. It's just another thing to think about. And so, Mark, what do you think is your plug for taking the exam in 2021?
Well, if you are, so I would say if you're maybe later in your career, and you've kind of gotten used to the idea of being able to have all that reference material, maybe I mean, I had some mentors in my the start of my career, that kind of get you up to speed, let you know the ropes and kind of how things are going to go. And that was one of the things that they would always talk to me about is, yeah, when you get in the PE test, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to go. And they kind of gave me a feel for how that was going to happen. And you know, it helped me prepare, I think, at least giving me an idea of what to expect. And so if you're that kind of a person that, maybe you're a little bit later on in your career and you've had those mentors that have kind of helped prepped you and talked about, giving you their war stories about how they took the PE test, and maybe that's your mindset, and that's what you're geared up for. Maybe you try to get it in before that. I don't
Yeah,
know. That's my thoughts.
I agree. That's a good way to look at it. I do think personally, I think it would be better to try to get it done in 2021 before it goes computer based. But either way, you're going to prepare for it the right way, and you're just going to take the exam the way they administer it. And I promise you'll get through it the right way. So,
Yeah.
but if you like the comfort of bringing in reference material, then I think 2021 is going to be your year to really shoot for that. I think you'll see a bump in numbers actually in people registering for the exam, because that's what
Yeah.
always happens before
Yeah.
they make the big change.
Right.
So
Right. And then you'll see people that are early adopters, those guys that like to get the latest and greatest up front, the cutting edge technology, the early
sure,
adopters, they'll be jumping in, and then everybody else. And I'm in this camp. I like to sit back and see how
how'd it
things fall out
go?
before I jump in. So people will sit back and kind of see how did it go, and they'll be watching, posts on social media or whatever, and getting a feel for how this new CBT test format went, and then we'll start to get a feel for how it is, and people can start organizing their study patterns accordingly. But I that's what I would do. I would be one of those that would maybe wait. I wouldn't be the first one out of the box to jump onto the CBT. I'd wait at least a couple cycles so that I could
See
see
how
what
it
people were
goes.
saying about it.
Well, cool. Well, I think
Yeah.
we kind of hammered everything about pros and cons, at least that we can think of. If you guys have any others, leave comments for us or shoot us an email. Be interested to hear your thoughts and opinions about it. Anything else you want to say before we wrap this up, Mark?
No, I don't think this is anything to be scared of. I think it's just something we got to adapt to, and we'll do it.
And we'll be adapting our courses for this, so it'll be good stuff. If you need a course for the PE, go check out civilpereviewcourse.com, and we've got all the lecture modules and content you need there to help ace this exam. But hey, Mark, thanks for joining this episode with me. It was fun to talk about this one.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Back. Oh.